Hey everybody, Jonathan Broadbent here, your host of UnWoke.Academy and the Financial PMA. Bear with me a moment here. We're going to have this video up and running. This is a pre-recorded. If you haven't been watching recently, I've actually switched to that format recently. Let me open up this video. That allows me to try to consolidate. I wanted to make best use of your time. It allows me to focus on a message per week, every weekly Wednesdays at noon Eastern time, Wednesdays. So please mark your calendar. Come back Wednesdays during your lunch break or wherever you happen to be in whichever time zone, Wednesdays at noon Eastern, and tune in as we cover a different topic each week. This week, I'm focusing on AI data centers. So without further ado, I'm going to let me see, let me bring up this folder and I'm going to remove this from the scene and let me work on sharing this. We've got a video opening up now. Here we go. Sharing, we've got the tech all figured out. And I'm going to share with audio. Share. I'm going to remove myself from the scene and share this video with you. I hope you enjoy this. If with any questions, feel free to add them in comments on whichever social media platform you're viewing this video on, or email me at jonathan@unwokeinvesting.com, JONATHAN@unwokeinvesting.com. I'll do my best to answer your questions, and unless you specifically say otherwise, you will be kept anonymous. Enjoy the video. Hey everybody, Jonathan Broadbent here, host and founder of UnWoke.Academy and the Financial PMA with another weekly Wednesday live stream. It's noon Eastern Time, June 3rd, and that means another live stream. This one on AI data centers. If you're concerned about those, you're going to want to tune in. Let's answer the question, who's going to pay for the darn things? If we let them happen, and there is significant pushback, I've been talking about it for months now, the American people are not really having it. They're not buying in. There's a huge push to force us to agree to these darn things. And there's a lot to unpack there. But true to our core mission, we want to focus on the financing of it. Let's drill down into the numbers and the financing. I'm ex-Wall Street. I saw the ins and outs and the dark underbelly of Wall Street and some of the bad things that can happen when Wall Street goes woke. And this includes AI data centers. Somebody sent me a link recently to something called the Shannon Joy Show, which I was not familiar with. The title caught my attention for reasons that may be obvious. It focuses on pension plunder. That's the title of this episode, and focuses on BlackRock targeting your retirement. So, of course, I had to clue in on that. It seems like Shannon Joy, whoever she is catching wind of the stuff that we have been talking about for many, many years now, focusing specifically on BlackRock. It, of course, goes way beyond that. But I watched this episode. In it, she hits the high notes, certainly. Shannon Joy has within her episode, she airs a segment from the Brannon Howse Show, HOWSE. In that episode, Brannon Howse, who is hosting this show within a show, hosts Edward Dowd. Edward Dowd got my attention a long time ago. He is a sharp mind. I follow him and I pay attention to the things that he says. So that lineup definitely caught my attention, starting with the title. The title focusing on pension plunder. I started focusing on that in 2007. That created a big stir. I got threatened with legal action, et cetera, et cetera. But that happens to be my area of expertise. If you happen to know much about the legal, accounting, or financial worlds, you may know the term ERISA. It's a body of law that started in 1974 and has everything to do with the requirements on how people's retirement money is used and utilized, and who oversees it, and what rules and regulations and laws they have to follow in order to hopefully protect your money wisely. ERISA is my area of expertise. I'm a subject matter expert. So when people start talking about this, I'm coming up on 20 years of experience in fighting back against the misuse and abuse of pension dollars. And yes, within the term pension, I do include IRA accounts and 401k, etc. So retirement assets, that's another way of putting it. Retirement assets are a huge target. At about $46 trillion, there's a lot of money that gets shifted around, and not just a large sum of money, but the fact that most people overwhelmingly set it aside and don't think about it for decades makes it a soft target for bad actors. So what does this have to do with AI data centers? I'm going to give the summary Cliff's Notes version of what we're talking about here between all these people. This Shannon Joy, Brannon Howes, Edward Dowd, and a few others. And later in the show, I'm going to touch on a gentleman that I've gotten to know a little bit personally, Patrick Wood from Citizens for Free Speech. That's where I know him from, but he does many things. He's a very active fighter for American freedom and liberty. I know I've thrown out a whole bunch of names. You may want to make some notes and check some of those people out yourself and see if you like them. They may be worth following in your book. For me, a few are new names, but I'm certainly going to start paying attention now. AI data centers. Somebody's got to pay for them. I've heard some projections, and these, of course, these are ballpark numbers coming from various different sources. If we're right about the intention of AI data centers, and it's to recreate the surveillance state that exists in places like communist China inside the United States, estimates are around $20 trillion that it would cost to build that sort of infrastructure. We see it happening all over. In my state of Ohio, it seems like every other week there's some new plan for a gazillion watt, gigawatt, whatever they are. I don't know. I don't even know the right terminology to use. These giant data centers. And they've gotten so big that you almost have to make up new terminology to define the things. I've actually had opportunity to tour some data centers, the real ones, that power things like your smartphone and allow companies to upload and use the cloud. And those places are really large-size factories. They're warehouses, basically. And a warehouse can do a tremendous amount of data movement. We're talking now orders of magnitude larger. So a typical data center, in my estimation, again, I'm not really a tech guy, but I've had some exposure. These data centers, the size of maybe a retail store or something, are huge and can do a lot. If you make a data center the size of, let's say, a Costco, that can handle absolutely massive amounts of information. But that's not what we're talking about now. We're talking about data centers that take up, one that I saw proposed is 7,300 acres of data center. There's one being proposed in my state of Ohio that people are trying to fight back against. That's 500 acres. 500 acres, how many Costco's could you fit on 500 acres? That's one of 200 or so data centers that are being proposed in my state of Ohio alone. So when you get into these data centers, the first thing to dispel is this ridiculous notion that because people are starting to use AI, and I caution against overuse of AI, be very skeptical of AI and what it pretends. Anyway, that's a separate note. We have the infrastructure in the existing data centers that are very comfortably supplying data, pictures, video content, cloud upload storage. So anybody who's out there saying we need to vastly, astronomically, astoundingly increase the capability of data storage, I think is off the mark. UnWoke.Academy is where the freedom economy and free markets and freedom initiatives meet follow the money. So if we follow the money, and if those figures are right, and let's just use $20 trillion, if it's going to cost $20 trillion to build that kind of infrastructure that exists in communist China within the United States to build the surveillance states, who's paying for it? According to these fine folks who are discussing it, this Shannon Joy and Brannon Howes, Ed Dowd, and others, the answer is you, we, the people. The plan, if the projections are correct, are to shift the ability to invest things like 401k money, and that alone is about $13 trillion, into investing in the growth and expansion of these AI data centers. We've seen bad things happen before, and that's well documented. We've seen, for instance, in the interview that I did with Justin Bernier from the National Security Index, we've seen that some of these woke managers will divert money through what are called offshore managers and into the growth and expansion of the Chinese Communist Party. So that means your retirement assets, your investment savings for your future, getting funneled into paying for the expanding military capabilities of Communist China. That's one example of misuse and abuse of retirement dollars. So that precedent certainly exists for bad woke managers. But we're hearing this steady drumbeat now, this narrative that investing in these AI data centers is somehow some smart, good thing that's going to fund some sort of tech revolution for the future. And here in Ohio, again, using my home state as an example, we have people referring to Ohio wanting to be the next Silicon Valley, and I'm air quoting that. Well, that's ridiculous. Silicon Valley actually allowed for free enterprise to build worthwhile things that people wanted, like smartphones and smart tech and watches and all that stuff. AI data centers fit in a very different category. AI data centers are the thing, and I absolutely believe this is the case, that is designed to be a prison. It's a digital prison being created by the state, capital T, capital S, to implement a surveillance state. Well, nobody's actually voting for that, and nobody's actually buying it. So that's not free market economy. That is a gulag that's being built by the state, funded, potentially, likely, by we the people. If we continue to do what we have been doing, and I mean that we collectively, allowing woke Wall Street to take money and divert it wherever they want, and not holding them to account and asking questions. And we've done it with those proxy voting. Actually, that trend is starting to reverse, thankfully. And we've got companies out there like Inspire Advisors who are asking questions and fighting back against constantly voting to the far left and left with those proxy votes. So there is some pushback. There is some questioning, but it's not enough, I don't believe, in my book. If we're right here and money is intended to be diverted out of sane, pro-market, free economy investments, which means managers out there, mutual funds and things like them, actually going out and looking for good investments and then managing them efficiently and effectively, if instead of doing that, they do what they've done over the last 6 years of diverting people's money into the woke companies, if we let that happen again, our money is going to be diverted into funding AI data centers. There's your $20 trillion. It actually would be pretty easy to come up with if the woke money managers out there, and I don't just mean BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, they have shown their true colors, they've shown their stripes for 6-7 years now or more. They have diverted money into the woke agenda and used our money to fund it. If they do it again with a little bit of a pivot out of those woke companies, but into AI data centers, your $20 trillion is pretty easy to come up with. That is bad news. That's bad news for us. It means that the image that comes to mind are those old Western movies and mob movies where somebody is dragged out into a field and made to dig their own grave. That's what this feels like. It absolutely feels like that. Digging your own grave. We cannot allow that to happen. It's up to us to ring the alarm bell and take control. For heaven's sakes, we have a tremendous amount of data and research going into great investment opportunities that are not woke, and we're tracking those on an ongoing basis. As part of UnWoke.Academy in the Financial PMA, the Financial PMA represents an opportunity to invest with like-minded people in a private environment that helps to protect your confidential information. So that's one of many different avenues to get your portfolio out of the hands of woke people. The Financial PMA is a standalone website. I suggest checking it out. By the way, if you work in finance and are interested in the steps that we're taking and the research that we're doing, call me up. I'd love to have other people out there in the financial world duplicating and replicating what we've got and how we're doing it. We need a lot more people talking about not funding the bad stuff with our nest egg. So just as a glimpse into what that looks like, we have a woman that I've talked about several times who joined the Financial PMA. She started investing on November 8th, 2024. So that was just before the election that put Trump back in office. We were predicting a reopening of free market economy and really have hit on all cylinders on this one. I've referenced her many times because she happens to be a woman who I personally helped to begin investing through the Financial PMA and the research that we've done. Again, I want to be clear about what this looks like. The research that we're doing and reporting on, calling out the bad woke investments and highlighting and spotlighting some of the good ones, can be anywhere. It can go anywhere. Give it to your financial advisor or financial planner. Use it in conjunction with us. Go on any platform you like. It doesn't matter. This is go anywhere. The objective is to fund free market economy and to stop funding the woke left. But tracking this woman, she has a current, as of close of markets yesterday, June 2nd, has unrealized gains in her portfolio. She has gains of 102.6% since November 8th. And this is a good, solid, well-built portfolio. This isn't us swinging for the fence. This is the way that investments should be run. And back in my day, when I first began working in finance, it was expected that mutual funds were out doing this sort of work, that they were out looking for good investments and trying to avoid bad investments with their investor dollars. It seems many of them drank the Kool-Aid, went woke, and stopped researching and stopped trying to find good investments. If I'm right, and I believe I am, I've highlighted that in episodes like The Parade of Woke Sameness and Globalist Bubble and others. If I'm right, then some of those same managers can and will, and very likely will, divert our retirement savings into things like funding AI data centers. As promised, I mentioned that I would bring up Patrick Wood. So if you're not familiar with Citizens for Free Speech, that is a great website, and Patrick Wood, you'll find through that and some of the other things that he's involved with. Patrick Wood has also just recently published a book called The Final Betrayal with co-author Courtney Turner. I don't know anything about Courtney Turner, but I do know that I like Patrick Wood and am a fan of many of the things that everything that I'm aware of that he's gotten involved with. So Patrick Wood, if you've heard me bring up Citizen Ninja and training people on how to spot propaganda, those sorts of things, Patrick Wood is behind a lot of that. So this Final Betrayal gives us sort of some new terminology and a new perspective to look at these sorts of things. We've struggled for the past 6 years or so on how to refer to what's happening to the world around us. Of course, we've got that age-old right versus left, Republican versus Democrat, communism versus capitalism, but this introduces, or more clearly defines, something called technocracy. Technocracy, I believe, is a term that's about to become household name. I think that a lot more people are going to be talking about technocracy. And one of the arguments that's made by many of the people involved in this type of conversation, like Brannon Howse, Ed Dowd, and others like them is a actually very compelling argument that places like China aren't so much communist as they are a technocracy, which means they use technology in order to suppress and control society. And if that's true, and I believe it is, that, or at least to a very large extent, then why on earth would we want to allow America to become a technocracy? We see this collusion between some of the tech giants like Google, Alphabet, Meta, Apple, Microsoft, and others to create this sort of power system of control of society. So, connecting that to AI data centers, why would we, the people, choose to fund their growth? I mean, we're doing it on our taxpayer backs. In places like Ohio, many of these AI data centers have been given tax abatement, which means they have some period of years where they don't owe any taxes. But of course, they're going to be a draw and drain on society, needing things like police and road, etc. So that means that the tax burden is shifted to the taxpayer. So if we're paying as taxpayers to create a tax incentive to grow the things that then become a technocracy and create a surveillance state, why would we also allow things like our 401k savings to be diverted into funding their growth and their building and the data and the pipeline of data that allows them, these techno firms, to control the people? Connected to this, keep in mind that all over the nation, people are grappling with the huge recent expansion of what are called flock cameras. These are cameras that go up all over communities and supposedly try to keep communities safe. That's what we're being pitched. And they may or may not spit out an array of different violation tickets for speeding, etc. But more importantly, and more to the point, they are designed to connect to AI data centers that then track movement of all people. Attached to that facial recognition software, GPS tracking on things like smartphones, and you start to have a tech state that is troubling. The point of this episode is to encourage people to be aware of what you're funding when you dutifully set money aside in an IRA account, purchase mutual funds or exchange-traded funds or things like them, or your payroll deduct that goes into your 401k or 403b or otherwise. If you're funding this stuff at the same time you're trying to fight it, you're defeating your own purpose. This has been another episode of UnWoke.Academy in the Financial PMA. Tune in next Wednesday as we continue the discussion with another topic.